The 2011 NASCAR season is the greatest NASCAR season of all time. If you want to debate me, the comments are open. Let's hear it. The Daytona 500, NASCAR's most prestigious race, was won by a complete nobody who couldn't even legally drink beer to celebrate his win. On top of that, we saw 17 different winners throughout the season, 5 of which earning their first career win. Jimmie Johnson, some guy you might have heard of, is going for his 6th career championship. Oh yeah, and that's his 6th championship in a row that he's going for as well. And that championship was won by a tiebreaker between 2 men on a mission for a NASCAR title. Just like every year, it all started in the Daytona 500, where Hendrick duo Dale Jr. and Jeff Gordon would take the front row, but like most super speedways, this wouldn't matter as both would finish outside the top 20, multiple laps down. The lead would change hands 74 times throughout the race. For comparison, in 2022, the Daytona 500 only had 35 lead changes. Ryan Newman would lead the most laps at 37, but like I said earlier, that didn't really matter, seeing as he finished outside the top 20, a lap down, multiple laps down to be exact. Nothing would matter until we got to the final restart after 3 hours, 16 cautions, and over 200 laps. The 2011 Daytona 500 would come down to just 2 laps. After a wreck involving pole sitter Dale Jr., Trevor Bayne, a 20-year-old in his first ever Daytona 500, making just his 2nd start in his career, and Tony Stewart, a multi-time champion, would line up for what would be the final restart of the race.
He's won the pole for the Indy 500. He's won the IRL championship, twice the Sprint Cup championship. He's won everything at Daytona.
47 with you. Still with you. Bottom.
And coming through the middle, Kurt Busch. Now down to the inside.
Bobby Labonte in that 47 gave Trevor Bayne a heck of a push.
Rookie Trevor Bayne in his 2nd Sprint Cup start will lead them to the white flag with Bobby Labonte. Here comes Kurt Busch and Juan Montoya. Carl Edwards in 5th.
And we know Kurt Busch and Montoya is going to make a move. DW, when will they make it?
I don't think they're going to make it till turn 4. I mean, we keep hearing about I'm a setting duck when I'm leading this thing. So I guess that makes the 21 a setting duck right now. But we'll see here. That 22 knows how to win from that position. That's where he won the Bud Shootout from.
Edwards and Gilliland down to the inside, trying to...
Where did that 34 come from?
Trying to spoil the party.
Oh my gosh.
They spoiled the party for Kurt Busch and Montoya, and here they come through turn 4.
Gilliland, former pole sitter of the 500. Edwards has room underneath. Now he pushes Trevor Bayne.
It's over.
Cinderella
Trevor Bayne is going to win the Daytona 500.
Unbelievable.
Happy birthday, Trevor Bayne, 20 years old.
Yes, I was butthurt that Carl lost. But that doesn't matter because to kick off the insanity that is the 2011 season, we have a complete underdog nobody that can't even drink yet winning the biggest race of the year. Yes, did I just repeat my intro line? I did, whatever. And this is just the beginning of this year. Jeff Gordon would go on to lead the most laps and become the first full-time winner of the season at Phoenix. Carl Edwards would go on to win and take hold of the points lead at Vegas. Kyle Busch won 2 of the 3 short tracks at the beginning of the year, taking Bristol and Richmond. Kevin Harvick would win the other one at Martinsville, also taking a win at Fontana. Matt Kenseth and Jimmie Johnson netted wins at Texas and Talladega respectively, which leads us to race number 10, Darlington. The chaos started with Kasey Kahne on the pole with his Red Bull number 4. Ryan Newman would join Kahne on the outside. Kahne would get the lead off the start, but after an early caution, Ryan Newman would take the lead off of a lap 9 restart. Kahne would eventually get the lead back though after a caution cycle Newman out of the lead, and Kahne would go on to lead the most laps of the race with his Red Bull number 4, which I'm sorry, that's pretty impressive. But when he was not leading, he still was up front, as his lowest position on the day was 11th. In the middle of the race though, Kahne was passed by a hard charging Carl Edwards, and after that we saw a lot of players like Jamie Mack, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick amongst others. They took turns with the lead throughout the middle of the race, but it would all come down to the end of the race where Carl Edwards led with 10 laps to go. At that point, Jeff Burton decided he wanted to run around the track with a blown engine until a caution came out, and that brought everybody together. The majority of the drivers on the lead lap decided to come down pit road, take 2 tires, but there was 3 stragglers that decided to take the gamble and stay out with about 4 to 5 laps left in the race off the restart. These 3 drivers were Tony Stewart, Brad Keselowski, and Regan Smith, who would cycle to the lead in his Furniture Row 78 with Brad K's Blue Deuce lying up next to him. Regan was able to hold off a hard-charging Carl with fresher tires, but another caution would come out for a wreck involving Kevin Harvick, more on that later, which set up a green-white checkered finish with Regan Smith still in the lead, but Carl Edwards in a faster car with 2 fresher tires on his outside.
Stewart, Kane, and Hamlin. Green flag, 2 to go.
Boy, I tell you, that 2 car gets up in there. That's going to mess with Carl a little bit, but Carl should be able to get the steam up the outside.
Regan Smith in that 78 gets a good run through 1 and 2, actually pulls away from Carl Edwards down the backstretch.
Stewart loses a bit of ground and loses 2 spots. It is Smith into turn 3. Edwards has the grip, and here he comes to the white flag. Regan Smith 1 lap away. Paul Menard blowing up in the back of the pack. White flag.
Can he do it? Can he hold him off?
No matter what, we've got a race now. They'll race it back if we don't get a caution.
Boy, Regan got off of the turn 2.
Oh, he hits the wall.
He's all right. He's okay. He got off there great.
But Edwards didn't jump inside.
They're all wrecking behind him, but it's okay. Can he hold him off? 1 more corner.
Here we come to the flag. Regan Smith looking for his first Sprint Cup win. Edwards to Carl flag. Smith gets the flag, and this time he'll get to keep it.
How about that?
After having an average finish of 25th through the first 9 races, Regan Smith would earn both his and his team Furniture Row's first ever Cup Series win, becoming the second first-time winner of the year, and spoiler alert, he isn't the last. But before we move on, here is a bonus clip of Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick being the 2 most civilized drivers in the garage.
And they are still stopped way up at the turn 4 end of pit road as Regan Smith does his victory lap. And Harvick's going to put the steering wheel back on.
I think Harvick was getting ready to hop out of that thing. I think somebody must have gotten to him. No,
wheels off again. Here he comes.
He says, okay. This is enough. I'm going back here, and we're going to have a little talk. And there goes his car. That car just took off.
Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the point standings just 10 races into the season. Carl Edwards was insanely consistent here at the beginning and earned a points lead despite only winning 1 race. Reigning champion times 5, Jimmy Johnson sat just 23 points behind Carl. Kyle Busch's 2 wins got him 3rd place. Dale Jr., he had yet to find a win, but he still sat 4th in points. Jeff Gordon, he failed to find consistency in that 24, earning 2 top 5 since his win, but also finishing a lap down 3 times after his victory, which left him 17th in the point standings, but it's still early. And shout out AJ Allmendinger for being 11th in the points, which in Richard Petty equipment I think is impressive. Maybe it was normal back then, but I just love seeing Dinger thrive, okay? I love the guy. Fast forwarding through the season here a little bit, Matt Kenseth and Kevin Harvick would get their 2nd and 3rd wins of the season respectively, Kenseth winning at Dover before Harvick would take the Coke 600 at Charlotte. Brad Keselowski would get his first win with Penske Racing at Kansas after an abysmal rookie year in 2010, where he only earned 2 top 10s in top-tier equipment. While struggling with consistency, Jeff Gordon was able to net his 2nd win of the year at Pocono. Denny Hamlin and Kurt Busch would become the next 2 drivers to get their first win at Michigan and Sonoma. And in super speedway fashion, David Reagan would collect his first career win in the Coke 0400 at Daytona, becoming the 3rd first-time winner this year. Kyle Busch would win the inaugural race at Kentucky. Fun fact, that was the last NASCAR race I got to see in person. Ryan Newman wins from the pole at New Hampshire, leading us to race 20 on the schedule at Indianapolis for the Brickyard 400. It all started with David Reagan and Casey Kane on the front row. Kane would pass Reagan for the lead and control most of the first quarter of this race. After a caution at lap 50, Dale Jr. stayed out and assumed the lead for a couple laps until Jeff Gordon would take control of the race for about the next 40 laps. After another caution, Paul Menard would stay out and lead a handful of laps, until Menard would be passed by Matt Kenseth, and the lead would change hands from Kenseth to Brad Keselowski to Clint Bowyer briefly to Tony Stewart, and then after Tony Stewart pit giving Paul Menard the lead back, it became a game of fuel strategy as the leaders all were on the borderline of making it to the end with about 15 laps to go. I watched these 15 laps and they were very intense. And while all the leaders were coasting around the track, Jeff Gordon, who had pitted recently, started to close in on the leaders as he had no reason to hold back. Menard's chances looked all but over after defending Brickyard winner Jamie McMurray powered by on the front stretch with 7 laps to go. But this race was far from over.
The defending winner is out in front. And does he have enough fuel, and has he saved enough to get to the checkered flag?
Let's go. We're turning loose. 24 is 2 seconds faster. We can't give up.
Okay, the race is on here, guys. Here goes Paul.
That was his radio. He was told to go. He's gone to the lead. Paul Menard.
Jeff Gordon should be able to get by Mark Martin here shortly. If he doesn't have to waste any time getting by Mark, and he's not at all before they get to turn 3. This is Jeff Gordon's race to win right now.
1 lap to go to win the Brickyard 400. Menard dealing with lap traffic. Gordon trying to close in turn 1. Menard is cleared out. Gordon's got to deal with the traffic.
He's got enough fuel. That might be enough now, yes. Looks good so far. This is going to be the biggest day of Paul Menard's life.
But does he have enough fuel to get to the finish? Gordon clear of traffic. Setting up for the finish. Final corners.
Good corner here.
30-year-old Paul Menard, his family with such a long racing history in Indianapolis, they'll kiss the bricks together now. Paul Menard wins the Brickyard 400.
Menard would become the 3rd first-time winner of the year of 2011, holding off 4-time champion Jeff Gordon in some of the most intense closing laps I've seen without an overtime finish. But wait, there's more. Brad Keselowski would win his 2nd race at Pocono, which would lead us to race 22, Watkins Glen. Kyle Busch and everyone's favorite road course ringer, AJ Allmendinger, started up front. The Dinger would steal the lead from the outside through the S's and hold the lead for the first 8 laps until Marcus Ambrose took over for another 8 laps, then pitting, handing the lead to Kyle Busch for a while. Due to varying strategies, there were a number of rotating leaders such as Juan Pablo Montoya, Jeff Gordon, Brad Keselowski, and more. None of that would matter though, as while Kyle Busch was holding off Marcus Ambrose with just 5 laps to go, Paul Menard would bring out a caution, bringing the field together and setting up a green-white checkered finish with Marcus Ambrose and Kyle Busch lined up in the front row.
Ambrose spun the tire stump. Brad Keselowski going by him.
Kyle Busch lights him up.
He's sideways. Here comes Brad.
Contact. Keselowski is through to the lead.
Here comes Ambrose hard in the throttle.
A little bump there, a little nudge.
Have to know Kyle Busch is going to be close here too.
Clear. Bring it on.
1 lap to go. Next flag ends the race. Do they have enough fuel to come back around and finish it? Kyle Busch looking to get back around Keselowski. Big crash in turn number 2. David Ruderman.
Still green. Looks like Tony Stewart out through the grass in the inner loop.
And back through traffic. Caution is out.
Yellow's out.
Race is over. Marcos Ambrose is your winner.
In case you lost track, Ambrose is the 4th. Actually, I lost track. He's the 5th driver to get his first career win in 2011. This was the most in a season in recent memory until this year, where we've seen 5 first-time winners already in 2022. With all the first-time winners out of the way, let's now fast forward to the chase. Kyle Busch would nab a win at Michigan. Brad continues his breakout season, winning his 3rd race of the year at Bristol. Jeff Gordon would also join the 3-win club 1 race later at Atlanta. And finally, Kevin Harvick would win the regular season finale at Richmond. The 12-driver chase lineup can be divided into 3 main groups based on the driver's performance this season. Starting with the favorites, Jimmie Johnson, the 48 team may have only earned 1 win all season, but they still were just 3 points out of the regular season championship, and the man had just won 5 championships in a row, so at that point you're pretty much a favorite by default. Kyle Busch, though, he was the regular season champion, riding off 4 regular season wins. All of that momentum made it look like the Candyman was poised to make a run for his first championship. And I threw Jeff Gordon in there. Might be a little bit of a hot take, but he was also very hot in those summer months. Had a rocky start, like I mentioned, but very hot in the summer months. 3 wins on the year. He looked poised to make a run deep in the chase. Now we're on to the contenders. Now these obviously aren't favorites, but they had performed well enough throughout the season to, if they were to compete for a championship, you would not be very surprised. This included Kevin Harvick. He had 4 wins on the year, showing he can get the job done, but the consistency wasn't quite there. He was in RCR equipment. Wasn't sure how great that equipment was at this point. Carl Edwards, he was the other contender. He led the points throughout the season. Honestly, could have been a favorite. He only had 1 win. He had an average finish of 9th place. Very historical consistency from Carl this year. And his teammate Matt Kenseth, he's a final contender. You know, he wasn't quite as consistent, but he had 2 wins on the year. He was in his prime, so I threw him in those contenders as well. But now we have the just there category, and these are the drivers that are, well, just there. And they made the chase, but there was no real expectation for them to, you know, make any noise in the chase simply based on their season. But that's the beauty of the chase. It doesn't really mean anything. The just there category includes Kurt Busch, Brad Keselowski, Dale Jr., Ryan Newman, Tony Stewart, and Denny Hamlin. Now, like I just said, these categories have nothing to do with how the actual chase played out. They're just kind of give you a little gauge for the expectations going into the chase. But like I said, no similarities to how the chase actually played out. Tony Stewart would make sure of that, winning the first race of the chase, coming from a 26th place start to take the victory at Chicagoland, but was not done yet. After a 20th place start, he turned that into a trophy at Loudon. And Tony Stewart, after not winning a race in the regular season, now finds himself in the chase points lead with 2 wins, with Kevin Harvick, who finished 2nd at Chicagoland, and Brad Keselowski, who finished 2nd at Loudon, right behind him. Carl Edwards' consistency seemed to carry over to the chase as he found himself 4th in the points. However, Jimmie Johnson did not see his performance carry over, as the 5-time defending champion found himself 10th in the standings after 2 races in the chase. The 48 team's fortunes, though, would improve with a 2nd place finish to Kurt Busch at Dover, and with a 3rd place finish for Carl Edwards, he found himself tied with Kevin Harvick for the points lead after a disappointing 25th place finish from Smoke. Johnson would follow up his runner-up effort with a win at Kansas, vaulting him up to 3rd place in the points behind Kevin Harvick and Carl Edwards, who established himself as the points leader. Meanwhile, Tony Stewart fell to 7th in the point standings after another disappointing finish in 15th. Johnson's hot streak ends with a rough 34th place crash out and a Matt Kenseth win over Kyle Busch and points leader Carl Edwards at Charlotte. Talladega was a rough race for chase drivers, as Brad Keselowski was the highest finisher, with Tony Stewart and Denny Hamlin being the only other chase drivers to make the top 10 in a Clint Bowyer 1 race. Jimmie Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Ryan Newman, and the Busch brothers all finished outside the top 25. That race would set up the championship battle that would work itself out over the course of the next 4 races. Starting with race 33, Martinsville. The Roush duo of points leader Carl Edwards and Matt Kenseth would line up on the front row to start and would battle for the first position side by side for the first couple of laps until Carl would win the battle and lead the field for the next 28 circuits. Carl would then make a fatal mistake on the first caution of the race, pitting when nobody else would follow him down pit road. It would spell the end of his reign of the lead. Tony Stewart, who had moved up to 2nd from a 4th place start, assumed the lead after staying out. Stewart would lead just 8 laps until Kyle Busch would muscle past and lead until AJ Allmendinger would legitimately pass him on speed and Richard Petty Motorsports equipment. Man, if he only didn't do drugs. Allmendinger would lead 19 laps and stay up front most of the day, as Kyle Busch and Ryan Newman took turns leading once Allmendinger wasn't anymore, until the Hendrick boys, Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon, would work their way to the front, along with Denny Hamlin also throwing his hat in the ring, leading some laps as well. By the time the new regime took over, chase drivers like Kurt Busch and pole sitter/points leader Carl Edwards found themselves a lap down, and with about 150 laps to go, Denny Hamlin, the leader at the time, started working on another chase driver who had fallen through the field, Tony Stewart, except he wouldn't be lapped as easy as the other driver.
He's got it to do. Tony fighting hard, though, and what he's able to do when he keeps Denny down there, where Denny's been wide around that strip right there, that rubber buildup. Denny's having to kind of run his right sides through that, and it's making it difficult.
Yeah, he's been straddling that. I watched Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, and Denny Hamlin straddle that where you see that rubber buildup through both corners. Not able to do that, like you said, underneath Tony.
Tony knows if he can get Denny blocked in behind the 5 and the 31 that they're coming up on here, that he might have a chance here still. Well, which way's the 5 going to go? Up to the outside in front of Stewart, now back down to the inside. Well, that 14's closer to a teammate. 9 car. To the 5.
Oh, now what?
Well, you have to punt somebody right here.
Kind of like that?
Yep.
Despite Denny's efforts, he was unable to make the pass, and while trying to do so, a caution would come out with 140 laps to go, saving Tony Stewart from going a lap down. This was really good for Tony because if he went a lap down, even if he got the lucky dog, it would take a lot to gain points coming from the rear of the field. And sure enough, Tony would take advantage of this, making passes and moving up through the field until the next caution, where he would gamble, taking only 2 tires with still 97 laps to go. He would start third behind Kevin Harvick, who was on the same strategy, and Jeff Gordon, who took 4 tires in the pits. Harvick would lead some laps off the restart, but then Tony would start to work on that 29 car, battling side by side until they would make contact, and then a perfectly timed caution would come out as Tony was starting to wonder if his tire was going down, so he would go down pit road because of the contact. He would be the only car to go down pit road under that caution. Harvick would stay out and take the lead with the help of a damaged Greg Biffle, who came out of pit road right in front of the leaders right off the restart, causing the leaders to spread out. But don't fear, Paul Menard is here, as another caution would come out for Kurt Busch, who got spun by Paul Menard. So Kevin Harvick and Jeff Gordon would go at it for like the 3rd time, and Harvick would win so handily that Jimmy Johnson would actually make a pass on Gordon and take a swing at the Budweiser 29. But let's move on. Remember that pole sitter and points leader Carl Edwards? Well, his day got worse, as while sitting in 18th right before the restart, he tried taking a position from the 31 that I guess was kind of his, but kind of too late to do such a thing, and Cousin Carl was penalized accordingly, making his bad day even worse. Who knew pitting at lap 28 could ruin your whole day? Oh, wait, what's that? NASCAR took it back? Oh, okay, I won't complain. Anyways, back to the leaders. Jimmy and Harvick are going at it for the lead, and Jimmy, on fresher tires, pretty easily makes the pass, and Gordon would finally get around that 29 car to set up a good old-fashioned Martinsville Hendrick top 2. Johnson would go on to lead the next 60 laps and was poised to win his 2nd race of the chase, and despite his inconsistencies, could put his name back on the championship radar. But then Brian Vickers caused his 4th caution of the race. I wish I was joking, but I'm not. So now, thanks to Brian Vickers, Jimmy Johnson would have to fight for his win, but not against his teammate Jeff Gordon, who was in 2nd most of the time that Johnson was in the lead. No, an old friend had worked his way up to 2nd place, and that old friend would be none other than Tony Smoked Stewart. After having to pit when nobody else did, and one of the hardest tracks to pass at, Tony Stewart found himself once again on the front row, but this time for the final restart of the race.
4th either, 3 to go. Oh, Junior nudged around. He and Logano
Keselowski goes around.
Around here. No caution. Keep rolling. Come on. No caution. Need to roll here.
And Stewart trying to get around Jimmy Johnson.
He's got him cleared off 4.
To the lead, Tony Stewart, 2 laps to go. Turn 3.
White flag's out, though.
Logano still driving around. We are on the last lap. Stewart, Johnson, Gordon. Will there be a bump and run? Gonna try it. Johnson gets there, but not enough. Tony Stewart wins at Martinsville.
In one of the most impressive drives I've ever seen, Tony Stewart collected his third win of the chase and solidified himself as a legitimate contender for this championship. But he didn't find himself in the points lead. That title went to good old Carl Edwards, who did some good driving himself, managing a 9th place finish throughout all the stuff he went through as well. That leads us to race number 34, Texas. Once again, Roush would have 2 drivers on the front row, but this time it was the other ones. David Reagan and Greg Biffle were on the pole row. Biff would lead the first 23 laps until his teammate Matt Kenseth took over, and Kenseth would control most of the next 100 laps in a long green flag run. But NASCAR, they got very impatient, and they decided to throw in a stage break before stages were invented, aka debris caution, around lap 112. This brought the field back together with teammates Matt Kenseth and Carl Edwards leading the pack. But the Roush duo would be quickly broken up by none other than Tony Stewart, who was running top 5 all day long, led a couple laps during the green flag pit stops, and had a great restart from the 3rd position to challenge Matt Kenseth for the lead. The two would run side by side for 2 laps until Tony was able to clear the 17, taking over the lead, and would control the race until lap 263 when a caution would come out. It was this restart where the battle became not only for the race but also for the championship, as Tony Stewart lined up across points leader Carl Edwards for the restart. Carl would win the restart, but it was short-lived thanks to another debris caution, but they would line up side by side again, and they would go at it again for that lead off the next restart. Tony would win this battle though, getting a nice run off the outside, and he wouldn't look back, leading the next 26 laps until he would have to pit and give the lead over to Jeff Burton and other drivers who were on a different strategy trying to make it to the end of the race on fuel. But with 5 laps to go, Burton's hopes of a win would come to an end as he ran out of fuel, relinquishing the lead back to Tony Stewart, who would go on to win his 4th race of the chase and also the season. But despite earning his 4th win, he was still 30 points behind points leader Carl Edwards, who finished 2nd place right behind him, just a second behind the 14. One could argue that had NASCAR not thrown that debris caution, or had Carl won that final restart, Edwards could have been the one in victory lane that night. But that's just racing. There would be no changes in the point situation at the end, so I don't see a point in really recapping. Basically, to very much summarize it, neither Tony nor Carl won. That would be Casey Kane getting his 1 lone win with Red Bull, that number 4. Carl and Tony would both lead laps, Tony leading the most, and finished next to each other with Edwards in 2nd, so they both literally made the same exact amount of points, Stewart finishing 3rd. This would set up one of the best, if not the best, season finale in the history of the chase system. You know my thoughts on it, but you might have difference. Which leads us to the finale, race 36, Homestead. Carl Edwards versus Tony Stewart. Edwards was the most consistent driver in the field throughout the season, holding a 3-point advantage going into the race, despite not winning a single race in the chase and his first win coming in the 3rd race of the year. Stewart was the opposite. He was mediocre throughout the season, but has gone on a tear in the chase with winning 4 races, and really the only reason he's not in front of Carl right now is because of his inconsistencies in the chase even a little bit there at the beginning. He was only 3 points behind though. Carl was gunning for his first championship, while Tony was chasing his 3rd career championship. The stage was set and it was time to decide the 2011 champion. Carl Edwards would start on the pole with Martin Truex Jr. on his outside, while, as is the case for most of the chase, Tony Stewart would have to work his way to the front, qualifying mid-pack. In order to win the championship, Stewart would have to either win or finish 3 positions ahead of Carl, who had a bad fast car from the start and took the lead from the drop of the green. While Edwards was up front for most of the beginning of this race, Tony Stewart ended up having to come down pit road under a caution to replace the little fencing area outside the grill because of a mysterious hole that Tony Stewart had no explanation for. This wouldn't be the end of his day, but going all the way back to 40th was a major setback for sure. By lap 117 though, that setback was gone. Tony would find himself in the 2nd row outside of his competitor Carl Edwards, once again muscling his way through the field just like he had throughout the chase. They lined up next to each other on the restart, and this would mark the start of their battle for the championship. Stewart would take the advantage on the restart as his restarting abilities had been, for lack of a better word, insane throughout the chase. charging to take the lead from Jeff Gordon, which was important so he get that extra point from leading a lap to gain a point back on Carl. After working on the 24 for a couple laps, Tony was able to earn that extra point and take control of the field as well, the provisional point lead of the championship. This would not last very long though, because a caution for Daytona 500 champion Trevor Bayne put both Carl and Tony a couple rows back from the lead. Carl was a row or two ahead of Tony, but as was the theme, with all his restarts throughout the chase, that would not last long.
Bottom side, and they're 3 wide for the lead up front. Truex through on the bottom of the 56 yard. On the outside of the 39.
Here comes Tony underneath Carl Edwards. Tony got a great restart that time.
He made that inside work. He was able to stay in the throttle and nobody held him back that time. He lost a couple of spots last time he tried that. In the gas hard here though.
3 wide right in front of them. How about 4 wide? Stewart to the bottom.
Wow.
He's sure not being conservative.
That guy's on a mission.
To say Tony was on a mission was an understatement. He would storm to the lead within 5 laps, but after leading another 5, a caution would once again come out for Trevor Bayne, and more nobody's wrecking. Carl Edwards would be the beneficiary of this caution, ending up with the lead after passing Matt Kenseth for control of the race. Carl would go on to lead 26 laps, then come down pit road, planning on making a 2-stop run to the end of the race. However, the 14 team had other ideas, as they would have Tony stay out an extra 11 laps in hopes of making it to the end. This would all become irrelevant though, as a short caution for rain would bring the field back together, and more importantly, on the same strategy. Stewart would start in 3rd, with Carl being just a row behind in 5th, but just like every other restart the past 10 races, Tony got an incredible jump.
Stewart to the bottom, 3 wide for the race lead.
3 wide, you're bottom, still 3 wide.
Maybe 4 as the 99 comes down the back straightaway here.
Kyle Busch and Keselowski not giving in. Stewart by Busch. Here's Edwards trying to keep pace.
Oh, that's close. Look at Stewart drive that car in loud.
Stewart by Keselowski to the lead.
That's 4 fresh tires working right there.
Edwards racing the 2 for second and trying to keep up. Big wiggle there on the 99. He's got to drop back in.
Like I said, Tony Stewart was a man on a mission, and you could visually see that in the way he drives, not only in this race, but all the races before that. Carl wasn't done though, as he would move into 2nd, and up until about 8 laps to go, he would slowly turn a 1.18 second lead into a 7/10 deficit. But it was clear he had used up his stuff and couldn't close anymore, as Tony Stewart, the man on a mission, would win this race, securing his 3rd career championship. This was not a championship won by consistency or dominance or luck. This was a championship won by a 10-lap struggle to stay on the lead lap, keeping him in the race to eventually win 140 laps later at Martinsville. This was a trophy earned by incredible restarts each and every race, which helped him earn as many points as possible, put him in positions to win. This was a crown given for resilience and a refusal to give up, even though the odds are stacked against him. There were no gimmicks or favoritism. This was simply a man accomplishing his mission with nothing more than just his skill and his hunger to win a NASCAR title. So let's rewind back to the beginning of the video. You remember when I said 2011 was the greatest season of all time? That's a little ironic. I wholeheartedly believe that, by the way. You might think I'm being sarcastic. I'm not. I wholeheartedly think this is at least my favorite, I guess is the better term. My favorite season of all time is this season right here. I will go back and rewatch this season later on in life because it's so good, even though my man Carl didn't win. Now, 10 years ago, here's true character development. 10 years ago, I was 10 years old. Watching this season, I hated it. I hated it so bad. I didn't watch NASCAR for 5 years. I kid you not. I watched 1 or 2 races a year. But still, I generally just stopped watching NASCAR unless it happened to be on because of the season. Because my Lord and Savior, Carl Edwards, lost. Now, that was just me being an angry little 9 to 10-year-old, but still, that's character development. Going from 2011, hating it and never not watching NASCAR because of it, to making a video on how awesome it is, and believing that this is the best season of all time. So that's just the whole thing. It's all about your perception, your point of view of that season. Chase fans might think that 2020 was the best year, whereas Kevin Harvick fans probably don't think that. It's all about perspective. And I would really like you guys to comment down below, what are your favorite seasons? And I would really like to go back and watch them and see why maybe you guys liked them, and see if maybe I like them. Because I could go watch 2003 season or whatever and be like, hey, I was like 2 when this came out, but I really enjoyed this season, and maybe I like it even more than 2011. So be sure to comment down below what seasons are your favorite, and I'll probably go watch them, give them a watch, make a video on them, and then, you know, we can talk about that. So I hope you guys enjoy, though. Be sure you like, hit the subscribe button. Like I said, comment down below what is your favorite season of all time, or seasons. Put as many as you'd like, and let me know how I did, what I need to improve on, stuff like that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
It's just been a pleasure to work with throughout the season. A lot of charm, a lot of determination to the next Cup Series.
He has been a breath of fresh air.
Came here in Atlanta, won Busch race. Back the next day, won the Nextel Cup race. But talked about it, sweep to become in fashion here in the Nextel Cup Series. And Carl Edwards sweeps at Atlanta.